Hey guys, in today's video, I'm going to be installing a new injector into my wife's Cherokee here. If you're new here, welcome to the channel and don't forget to subscribe. Anytime I put a car back together and it starts is a win in my book. So yesterday I got a call from my wife and she said that there is a flashing check engine light and her car is not running right. So I got my scan tool out, plugged it into the car, and I got a P206 code as well as a P306 code. Now the P206 code relates to the fuel injector in the number 6 cylinder, and P306 is a misfire in the number 6 cylinder. Now in order for me to check to make sure what exactly is going on, just for a quick diagnosis, I went ahead and cleared all the codes, started the car up, drove it around a little bit, parked it, and all I had was a P206 code, which is just the fuel injector. If I'd have got both codes right away, I would know that there was something more going on than just the injector. But as I can see, the injector is bad, which is causing the misfire down the road as well. So I went ahead and looked at Rock Auto, as well as O'Reilly's and AutoZone and Napa. Honestly, O'Reilly's could get me the parts the fastest for about the same price as Rock Auto. So I went ahead and ordered from O'Reilly's. Not only that, it got here in less than 24 hours, which is absolutely awesome. Free shipping. So I'm going to go ahead and put these parts on here and make this thing run right. Now, because you have to remove a portion of the intake to get to your fuel injector, I highly recommend that not only do you get your new injector, but you also get a gasket kit as well for your intake. You do not want to reuse the old gaskets on your intake. Now for my car, it's coming up on time to do spark plugs, so I figure it's a good time for me to do the spark plugs because you have to remove a portion of the intake to do the spark plugs as well, and I don't want to do this job twice. So I've got my injector, my 6 spark plugs, and my intake gaskets. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is remove this plastic cover here. It'll just lift right up. Should lift right up. So next up, we need to remove this intake hose here. It's just a couple of clamps and it'll pop right off. So I was trying to have a GoPro that suction cup to the bottom of the hood here, and it is not working out. And I just realized I need to build a mount on a magnet. That would work great. Except I don't think a magnet would stick to that. Either way, I was trying to have a camera that pointed down really good, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So bear with me. We're going to do our best. So the next thing that I'm going to do is slowly work at disconnecting all of my electrical connectors very carefully with a little screwdriver. I just don't want to break anything because obviously this is my wife's car and it needs to be reliable. Something always important to remember is not to lay your tools across the battery because it makes quite the light show and it's entertaining every time, I'm not going to lie, but maybe I'll try to insert a clip of me doing it right about here. So the next thing I'm going to do is get this line here out of the way, and I'm just going to pry up on this with a screwdriver, do a little prying over here with a screwdriver, and I will pull it out. I'll show you more clearly what happens on that connector there. So this connector just has kind of a retaining clip. You can kind of work it out and it'll unclip. Be careful not to break it like I'm about to. And that little retaining clip should just come out and your line will disconnect. Probably gonna get in our way later. That's all right, we'll deal with it then. So with this line out of the way, we can go ahead and remove the rest of this box here, and I'll go over it more in just a minute. But you do want to be careful. You want to remove the clamp where it connects to the rest of the intake and free it up there. But there are also some plastic pieces that have a tendency to break, and I'll show you guys once I get it out what's going on. So as you can see here, this piece is already kind of broke. It should look more like this one up here. There's these little plastic pieces that hold this in place. Mine has already been broken, so it was really easy to take out. But you kind of want to work at these, lift them up, get it all freed up, or you can just break them because you don't care like the last guy that worked on this. And eventually, I'll probably fix it. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see how much it vibrates going down the road. Now we've reached a point where we can go ahead and remove the rest of this intake here. Now in order to remove this, you're going to have two 10mm nuts on the front, as well as two 10mm nuts on our bracket towards the back right here. Now this bracket, I highly recommend that you loosen the entire bracket. There's a stud further down, you can't miss it. But that way you can pry the bracket away from the intake, because when you remove the intake, you're going to have to push it towards the cab a little bit and lift it up. Now in addition to those 10mm, you're also going to have 6 8mm bolts that go straight down. You're going to have them right here, 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 as well as right here, deep down in the center, and deep down in the center. Once all that's off, you should just be able to move it towards the cab and lift it up. So there's actually one more 8mm bolt I forgot to mention, and it goes right about here. You can't miss it. If you remove all the other ones and you try to lift it up, it obviously is not going to come off without breaking. So with the intake off, first and foremost, I need to cover this, because guaranteed if I'm going to drop something, it's going to go right down in there, and then I'm going to have a bad day. So now that we're apart and we have access, the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is just hop in there and change my spark plugs real quick. It's really simple and easy. You've got your 3 coils here on the front, and you've got 3 on the back. You want to go ahead and remove your coil. So you're going to disconnect your connector, and there's a 10mm bolt that's holding your coil down. Just go ahead and pull it out. Swap out your spark plug. Don't forget the anti-seize. So I'm going to knock that out real quick, and then we'll move on to the injectors. So I've got all of my spark plugs done, all my coils back in place, and now it's time to actually move on to my injector. Now my code, which is a P0206, is pertaining to the number 6 cylinder, and on this 3.2 engine, it actually is 135 towards the firewall and 246 towards the front. So mine is number 6, so I'm going to focus on the number 6 fuel injector here. Now the next step in this process is to actually remove the fuel rail so that I can get the injector out. But the first thing we're going to do is remove all of the electrical connectors. Now these connectors are a safety connector. It's got a red tab. You want to pull that red tab away from the injector, and it'll come to a stopping point, and then you'll be able to squeeze it like a normal electrical connector and pull it off. Try not to break it. Now that all the electrical connectors are out of the way, we're going to have 2 torques that we got to remove, and it's going to be right here. We're just going to pull these 2 torques, and we should be able to lift up the whole fuel rail kind of out of the way to get to our injectors. This is the part where you need to be extra careful not to lose anything down in the intake. Now with those out of the way, you should be able to just lift up on your fuel rail and have it come loose. Don't be alarmed if you spill a little gas. And just like that, our injector is out. Now just because I'm a curious person, I'm going to go ahead and ohms test this and check it against the new one and see what kind of resistance we have in here. If the resistance is significantly higher than the brand new one, I know definitively that this was my problem. I'm going to go ahead and do an ohms test just to see. This here is one of the good injectors that I pulled out. 12.4 ohms. Now this is the brand new one out of the box, and we are at 12.3 ohms. Now this one here is the one that came out of my number 6 cylinder. It's all over the place. It's not steady. As well as it is well over 20 ohms, 27, 28, 30, 37, 38. So clearly the injector is bad, and I need to replace this injector. I already knew that, but now it is 100% verified that this injector is trash. So now all I got to do is put it all back together in reverse order of the way that it came out. But one thing to note, it's very important, you do not want to over torque your intake bolts. The bolts that go through the intake go into a plastic piece, and you don't want to over torque them. Just go ahead and snug them up. There's actually a torque printed on the top of my intake. It says 7 to 8 newton meters, about 70 inch-pounds. You don't want to go any higher than that. Just get them good and snug. Don't over torque them. You don't want to pull the threads out of the plastic intake. That would be terrible. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and slap all this together real quick and then see how it runs. All right, we're all set. and running good. If you like this video, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. As always, don't forget to subscribe. You can check me out on Instagram at It's Project Venture, as well as the Tickety Talk at It's Project Venture. Thanks for watching. Let it go, let it go. My hands are too fat to fit. In a minute, I'm gonna need a sentimental man or woman to put me up.